General Assembly. President Trump presses the need for reform as he attends his first summit in New York City. Plus, what the Holy See is advocating. Religious litmus test? Senator Dianne Feinstein speaks out about why she questioned a judicial nominee about her Catholic faith. It's a story we broke here on News Nightly. Father Tom, in his own words.
They tied my eyes so that I don't see.
The Indian priest freed 18 months ago opens up. We'll have a report from Rome. And rocking like none other. The unusual band waiting to see if they will be selected for a Latin Grammy. On EWTN News Nightly for Monday, September 18th, 2017. Good evening from Washington, D.C., and thank you to those of you joining us from around the world for news from a Catholic perspective. I'm Lauren Ashburn. Make the United Nations great. That's how President Trump is characterizing his visit to the UN General Assembly in New York. He's chastising the world body, charging it with mismanagement, and is challenging it to focus, quote, more on people and less on bureaucracy. Correspondent Mark Irons reports from the White House. Good evening, Mark.
Good evening, Lauren. As a candidate for president, Trump labeled the UN as weak and incompetent. At a meeting on UN reform today, he said the group spends too much money and has too many staffers. The president's meetings with heads of state include one with France and another with Israel, focused on peace in the Middle East.
Ahead of his first address to the UN General Assembly, President Trump sits down with Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu.
We're going to be discussing many things, among them peace between the Palestinians and Israel will be a fantastic achievement, and we are giving it an absolute go. I think there's a good chance that it could happen.
But today, the president pressed for reform of the 193-member governing body. Trump thanked UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres for his efforts, but said change is needed.
The United Nations was founded on truly noble goals. These include affirming the dignity and worth of the human person and striving for international peace. Yet in recent years, the United Nations has not reached its full potential because of bureaucracy and mismanagement.
The big issue expected to dominate this year's meeting, the nuclear threat posed by North Korea.
As far as North Korea is concerned, I think most of you know how I feel. We'll see what happens.
Nikki Haley, U.S. ambassador to the UN, says it's a new day. Haley says the body is more action-oriented, and when it comes to North Korea, the U.S. will act if it's necessary.
If North Korea keeps on with this reckless behavior, if the United States has to defend itself or defend its allies in any way, North Korea will be destroyed. And we all know that. And none of us want that. None of us want war.
The UN General Assembly continues tomorrow with the president's address to members. Expect him to ask for greater burden sharing in the fight against terrorism. In the past, he has complained U.S. spending on the United Nations is unfair. The U.S. is the largest contributor, paying 25% of the UN operating budget. Lauren.
He ran on that in his campaign, I remember. Now, Mark, President Trump says he wants to eliminate inefficiencies at the UN. Are there specifics he's outlining?
The Trump administration is reviewing the United Nations' 16 peacekeeping operations scattered around the world. Those operations cost nearly $8 billion a year, so cutting costs and making them more effective is a top priority for UN Ambassador Nikki Haley.
Correspondent Mark Irons at the White House. Thank you, Mark. The U.S. isn't the only major player hoping to make strides at the UN this week. The Catholic Church uses its influence to promote the dignity of life. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsbee joins us from New York City, where he is covering the UN General Assembly. Good evening, Wyatt.
Lauren, good evening. The Holy See earned a spot as one of the top negotiators here at the UN. They regularly weigh in on a number of issues like epidemics to corrupt regimes to even human rights violations. But there's one issue, one topic rising to the surface this year, and that's the plight of refugees and migrants around the world.
They're fleeing from violence in the Middle East, from corrupt Central and South American governments.
and from religious persecution in places like Myanmar. Millions of migrants and refugees are trying to stay alive and build a better life for their families. Archbishop Bernardito Auza, the Holy See's ambassador, tells me their mission is to pray and advocate for those who are often marginalized.
It's a necessary forum for discussions, for debates. You know, we have what the Pope called the culture of encounter.
His Excellency led top UN officials in a prayer service last week, using the words of Pope Francis to pray for migrants, the environment, and world peace. UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres, who is Catholic, also thanks faith groups for their help on the ground.
We may follow many faiths, but we all share a common ethical foundation to treat humanity with humanity. And this is the message loudly conveyed by so many inspiring religious leaders.
A profound statement, according to Anna Halpine. She's the founder of World Youth Alliance, which advocates for the value of human dignity. She tells me she's never heard a UN Secretary General give such a high compliment to faith-based organizations.
States are looking for ways that they can welcome and integrate individuals. They're looking for ways they can protect these migrants, and that's becoming a more and more important topic that links in particular to Pope Francis's other priority of human slavery and human trafficking.
And it's an important topic here in the United States as well. The Obama administration planned to take in over 100,000 refugees for this year, but published reports indicate that the Trump administration may cut that number to below 50,000. Now, U.S. bishops had sent a letter to the president asking for him to take in at least 75,000 refugees into the United States. Lauren?
That's an increase. So why are the bishops speaking out right now?
Well, Lauren, the U.S. bishops say it would be inhumane to cut the number of refugees allowed into the United States, since the number of displaced persons around the globe is reportedly at an all-time high. Lauren?
That video of those refugees, just heartbreaking. Thank you. Correspondent Wyatt Goolsby in New York City. Secretary of State Rex Tillerson says he is considering closing the U.S. Embassy in Havana, Cuba. Tillerson says mysterious acoustic attacks have injured State Department employees. 16 claim they're suffering hearing loss after suspected sonic attacks. President Trump has already imposed travel and business restrictions on Cuba. This is in contrast to President Obama, who restored diplomatic relations between the two countries in 2015. Police say a counterterrorism operation is underway outside of London. It's connected to last week's subway bomb attack. Officials now say at least 30 people were wounded when a bucket exploded on a train near the Parsons Green station. The terror threat level has been raised to critical, the highest level. It's been more than a week since an earthquake hit Mexico, killing at least 90 people. The Catholic Church there says it's providing aid and assistance to those most affected. The quake on September 7th damaged at least 122 churches. Turkey's military kicks off drills near its border with Iraq. It comes as the semi-autonomous Kurdish region prepares to hold a referendum on independence next week. The exercise is a show of force ahead of the vote. Turkey has a large Kurdish minority. At least 36 refugees are dead after clashes with security forces in Congo. The United Nations envoy to the Democratic Republic of Congo says more than 115 others are hurt. The UN is calling for a swift investigation into the violence and deaths. The government in Tunisia lifts a ban on Muslim women marrying non-Muslim men. The change comes after a recommendation from the country's president, who says Tunisia needs to modernize. Muslim men were allowed to marry non-Muslim women. A rescued priest in the Philippines who had been kidnapped by militants is expressing his gratitude.
I pray for you. God bless you all. Pray for me.
Father Teresito Soganob was taken in May from the southern town of Marwari. He told reporters today he was physically strong and sound during the ordeal. The Bishop of Marawi tells Vatican News Agency, "We thank the Lord and all of those who in the world prayed for his release." And a Catholic priest from India, freed after 18 months in captivity in Yemen, speaks to the press for the first time.
Lord God, even my captors who have been understanding to me and have not hurt. It's God's intervention.
During a press conference in Rome, Father Tom expressed his gratitude for release and people's prayers. He was abducted in March of 2016 at a home for elderly people run by Mother Teresa's Missionaries of Charity. 16 people were killed, including 4 nuns. Juliet Lindley is EWTN News Nightly's Vatican correspondent. She joins us from Rome. Juliet, how is the father doing physically?
The priest said that his abductors took good care of him, took care of his basic needs, and they even provided him with the tablets he needed for his diabetes. However, he did say, and it was very clear, that he had lost about 30 kilos, that's about 66 pounds, and those close to him say he is weak and not doing so well. However, his spirit is calm.
What is it like for him being in captivity? How did he survive losing that much weight?
Well, he said that the captors were never violent towards him, although in some videos that appeared online, videos in which he appealed to the international community and to the Vatican to help in his release, although it appeared that they were treating him badly, he said that they were doing it to help in attempts to accelerate his freedom. How did he survive the ordeal? He said he prayed a lot and he would say Mass inside his mind to keep him going.
What do you think he's going to do now that he can actually go to Mass? Is he going to return to missionary work?
He is going to be in Rome at least for another week. He needs to get his Indian passport released. And then he has expressed a desire to go back to India to be with his family, and then he would like to return to his priestly ministries.
What about a ransom, Juliet? Was it paid?
Now, that's one of the details of this abduction that still remains unclear. Now, he thanked the Indian government and the Vatican thanked the Sultan of Oman after his release. But the priest has said that although he suspects that they abducted him because they wanted money, he has no knowledge of any money ever being asked for or any transaction ever having taken place.
Thank you so much, Juliet Lindley, EWTN News Nightly Vatican correspondent.
Thank you.
Pope Francis greets athletes racing in the first multi-religious half marathon for peace.
Saluto I partecipanti alla corsa podistica Via Pacis.
During his weekly Angelus address, the Pope greeted the team. The marathon was organized by the City of Rome and the Vatican, and it incorporated sites from 5 different religious denominations, including St. Peter's Square and Rome's historic synagogue. Coming up, the dogma lives loudly. Senator Dianne Feinstein explains her questioning of a federal judge nominee about her Catholic faith. And religious liberty. A federal court issues an order allowing a farmer to return to a market in Michigan. Hurricane Maria is now a Category 3 storm as it heads toward the Caribbean. Some areas in the region are still reeling from Hurricane Irma. Maria is expected to hit Puerto Rico on Wednesday. Doubling down on the dogma lives loudly debate. Senator Dianne Feinstein defends her controversial comments directed at a Catholic judicial nominee, saying the new Notre Dame professor's statements deserved to be questioned. Jason Calvi, our correspondent on Capitol Hill, continues to follow the story he first broke 12 days ago. Good evening, Jason.
Good evening, Lauren. California Democrat Dianne Feinstein is not apologizing for her comments to Amy Barrett. Instead, she says she was justified. But tonight, some just aren't buying it.
I was outraged.
The Jewish Institute for Global Awareness's Arthur Goldberg slams Senator Dianne Feinstein for this.
The dogma lives loudly within you, and that's of concern.
Words aimed at Catholic law professor Amy Barrett. Goldberg says it's completely out of line.
For liberal and progressives, it is my way or the highway. Either you agree with me or you're disqualified, and that's absurd.
But Senator Feinstein defends what she said at Barrett's confirmation hearing.
This is a woman that has no real trial or court experience. All we have to look at are her writings. And in her writings, she makes some statements which are questionable, which deserve questions.
Feinstein references a 19-year-old law review article where Barrett writes about the conflict Catholic judges face when they have to enforce the death penalty, but also follow the church's moral teaching. She wrote, "The legal system has a solution for this dilemma. It allows, indeed it requires, the recusal of judges whose convictions keep them from doing their job." And article co-author John Garvey, now president of Catholic University, says, "Our point was that judges should respect the law, even laws they disagree with, and if they can't enforce them, they should recuse themselves." And that's what Barrett told the Senate Judiciary Committee again and again.
It's never appropriate for a judge to impose that judge's personal convictions, whether they derive from faith or anywhere else.
The Senate Judiciary Committee votes on Amy Barrett's nomination as an appeals court judge in a few weeks. If approved, then the full Senate will vote. Lauren?
Jason, you're saying Dianne Feinstein isn't apologizing, even though the presidents of Princeton and Notre Dame have criticized her words. What else is she saying, if anything, in her defense?
Feinstein points out she went to a Catholic school, thinks Catholicism, in her words, is a great religion. Now, the 84-year-old is up for re-election in 2018, but she won't say if she plans to run again.
Correspondent Jason Calvi on Capitol Hill. Thank you, Jason. Senate Republicans are planning a final push to repeal and replace Obamacare. I think we've heard this before. The initial vote crashed in July, and now 2 senators are leading a new charge. Democrats are calling for the CBO to look at this plan. Leading Democrats sent a letter today to the director of the Congressional Budget Office for comprehensive analysis before this vote happens on legislation proposed by these senators. But time is running out. The Senate has until September 30th to pass the law with 50 votes. After that, they would need 60 votes. We're joined by Genevieve Woods, senior advisor at the Heritage Foundation, to discuss healthcare overhaul. Welcome back to the program.
Always good to be back on a similar topic.
Always healthcare. Here we are. We thought this was gone, but it's not. Republican Senator Lindsey Graham of South Carolina, Bill Cassidy of Louisiana, Dean Heller of Nevada, Ron Johnson of Wisconsin, and the surprise wild card here is Senator Rick Santorum, former senator, Republican senator from Pennsylvania, unveiled this legislation to reform health care. How is this plan different from all of the others we've seen before it?
Well, in many cases, it's very similar. In some cases, such as repealing taxes, it's different because it doesn't repeal all of the major Obamacare taxes, which is a problem because that means prices for individuals are going to continue to go up and they're not going to go down in many cases. But there are a lot of good measures in it too, meaning that it wants to give more power back to the states as opposed to the federal government being in charge. It wants to reform Medicaid, which is a very good step, but the taxes problem is an issue.
So here's the letter to CBO. They want to know how many people are going to lose health insurance and how much premiums and out-of-pockets will be. This is one of my favorites. The DNC just sent out Graham, Cassidy, Heller, Johnson, worst health repeal yet, and a whole bunch of sad face emojis comparing the two plans.
As I said to you, Lauren, before the show, we have a plan. If you go to heritage.org and you can look at all the different plans that have been introduced over since 2015 and compare them. Here's the reality. More people have lost health care or have higher premiums because of Obamacare, not because of any new plans that have been introduced. And here's the reality. CBO's already put out numbers saying far few people, millions fewer, are going to sign up for the Obamacare exchanges than were predicted because of the cost. And these people are not the young, healthy people that were going to bring the numbers down. They're older, sicker people. And so the reality is the current way we're going means premiums are going to continue to go up. Fewer people are going to have good health care options. That's the bottom line.
And this plan defunds Planned Parenthood, which is something that there is a negative smiley face here under the
DNC they don't
release.
like the fact
they do not like that.
But it's not just Planned Parenthood. This amendment looks like it would, and we're still reading the bill. It's about 140 pages long. We're still looking at all the details, but it does look as though it would prohibit any federal taxpayer dollars from going to abortion, whether it's through Planned Parenthood or anybody else, because it keeps Hyde Amendment protections in there. That's something that has been consistent with all these bills, so that's what we want to stick with here too.
Thank you so much, Genevieve Wood, always insightful.
Thank you.
Senior advisor at the Heritage Foundation. At least 80 people arrested in St. Louis, Missouri late Sunday after protests turned combative.
Disperse immediately.
They began Friday after a judge acquitted former St. Louis police officer Jason Stockley in the 2011 fatal shooting of Anthony Smith. Today is the 4th day of protests, which have included nonviolent marches as well as violent skirmishes with police. A federal judge's orders East Lansing, Michigan, to allow a Catholic farmer to take part in the city's farmers market he was originally disinvited to after the city learned the farmer believes marriage is between one man and one woman.
We were surprised because for over 7 years, we've been serving all the customers with no complaints, no issues, no protests.
All of a sudden, I felt like we couldn't even believe what we wanted to believe. We had to be quiet.
The city ousted Country Mill Farms after reading a post on the small business's Facebook page. As the religious liberty case moves forward, the farmer will be allowed to return to the market. Up next, Father Leo of EWTN's Savoring Our Faith is in the house, talking about the Olive Mass and giving a few cooking tips. And singing sisters, rocking and rolling about love and faith. Today, the church honors Christian mystic and Saint Joseph of Cupertino. The Franciscan friar is most famous for levitating at prayer. He was canonized in 1767 by Pope Clement XIII. Food and faith, perfect partners, according to one priest who is doing good works by feeding souls. Father Leo is the mastermind behind the Olive Mass in its 2nd year. It's an annual celebration for restaurant and hospitality workers, and it's happening this weekend in the Big Easy. We're joined by Father Leo Patalinghug, the creator of the Olive Mass and host of EWTN's Savoring Our Faith. Bon appetit. Welcome to the program.
Thank you for your hospitality.
Oh, we could do this all day.
All day.
You know? Okay. Why did you want to cook?
Well, I didn't want to cook. I want to feed people. So there's a big difference between that. You know, I never wanted to be a chef, even though I studied it. And so now with the movement Grace Before Meals, I do a lot of cooking to get to people's hearts and souls, but go through the stomach.
And then you started the Olive Mass in New Orleans.
The Olive Mass is simply a part of the Table Foundation, the nonprofit group, because the church celebrates professionals like the white mass for doctors and the red for lawyers. Why don't we celebrate people who help us celebrate? And that's chefs, restaurateurs, hospitality industry folks.
What a great idea. You had a smackdown with Bobby Flay. What was that about?
Well, it was a throwdown with Bobby Flay, and I smacked him down because I won. Yeah, I put holy water in the marinade. That's kind of what I did.
And that's the Holy Spirit came and said, Bobby, you're out.
And it was interesting because I didn't know that this was going to happen. And this was several years ago, but it still has legs. And people just know that priests, we have a great responsibility, and that is to spread the good news, and we use food to do it.
You delivered an absolutely beautiful homily at the inaugural Olive Mass last year in New Orleans. Let's listen to a part of your homily.
Okay.
So for those in the front of the house or on the back of the house, whether you're serving or you're washing dishes, God is with you. If you don't believe me, listen to the words of Saint Teresa of Avila.
And what did she say?
She said, if you want to find God, look for him amidst the pots and the pans. In other words, serve one another, which is what Mary was, a servant, and what she told the servants to do whatever he tells you.
Absolutely beautiful. You're busy with your cooking show, preparing for the Olive Mass, but you're working on another food-related project in Baltimore?
Why not?
Because, you know, if you're busy, you might as well be really busy.
So we hope to, with the Table Foundation, create the Table Foundation House, which will be a very awesome breakfast and lunch cafe, a dinner thematic space called the Main Event. Chefs from around the country will come cook and share their story, but it will also be a formation house for ex-convicts.
Oh, how great is that? You're really doing something.
Yeah, we want to let people know that if you love Jesus, you will feed his sheep.
All right, I want you to feed the sheep with this.
Okay.
We have some hummus, we have some mustard, we have some syrup, we have some feta cheese. What else do I? Oh, and ketchup.
Okay.
Make it.
Well, okay, so what I would probably do is kind of create a sauce with these three things, and I would maybe even add some soy sauce to it. And this will be for a dressing for chicken. And this, feta cheese and chocolate, and I'm praying here, this could actually, if you temper it down, could add a beautiful little glaze on some ice cream or something.
What? You're amazing.
I don't know about
you're
that.
Gonna feed my soul. I think I'll pass on this, but I will come to your new place in Baltimore.
Sounds good.
Thank you so much, Father Leo, for coming, for all that you do to help serve the poor and to help restaurant workers.
My pleasure.
Finally tonight, it's been 25 years since Whoopi Goldberg played Sister Mary Clarence in the pop singing story of Catholic nuns. Well, it hit theaters then, so move over, Sister Act. The real-life nuns are doing something those cinema competitors couldn't. They're earning more than 1 million views on YouTube. The group Siervas, or Servants, was formed 3 years ago in a Peruvian convent. They sing songs of love and faith in Spanish. And these religious sisters come from 8 countries. They're in their 20s to their 40s. They say they grew up on rock and roll and hope their songs reach younger generations. They've released 2 CDs, and they're waiting to see if they are nominated for a Latin Grammy this week. And that's for Confía en Dios, which means trust in God. For all of us here at EWTN News Nightly, to all of you around the world, thank you for watching. I'm Lauren Ashburn. We'll be back tomorrow with more news from a Catholic perspective. Good night, and God bless you.